Good afternoon and welcome to the March 16th work session. Leading the pledge tonight will be our Director of Transportation, Mr. Snell.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Snell. Okay. Ms. Joyce will do the moment of silence on Thursday. Okay. Agenda. Any questions, comments, discussion regarding the agenda? We'll be back together tomorrow night, so you'll have plenty of time. Consent agenda. Anybody? Mr. Estes.
On the volunteer coaches, I thought that we've got our basketball coach on here. Isn't the basketball season about over?
Middle school basketball is over. What you're dealing with there, I think, is they do summer camps and stuff, and they're short. I think that's what you're looking at. Actually, it's early for next season because all your middle school basketball is over.
It says 15-16 school year.
I know. I noticed the same thing. Okay. I think that's what you're talking about.
And you got one there on there for baseball and softball, and their season started too.
They have. They just start. This week's the first games, isn't it? I think this week is the first games this week.
I thought we were supposed to have all this approved before the season.
We were, and I noticed those two are middles, what I did notice, but they have more trouble in there than they do the high school keeping them, but.
We'd like to continue to hold their feet to the fire.
I understand what you're saying. I know they have trouble getting people sometimes what they're doing, especially middle. That's the hard.
I think our biggest concern is that they're not having exposure to our students until they're approved too. So.
Yeah, they have to have to have been screened and passed from that before we put them on here. They may have asked for it 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it may be tied to even when we got back to, they need to really work way ahead because you have to get that fingerprint done. You know, that's the thing.
We're not doing it on campus here anymore.
We don't do it here.
So,
I don't even know where it is now. Where is it in town, Paula? Fingerprint screening, do you know? We send teachers sometime to other places, I know, to try to get them in.
Specific to any other area?
anybody else? Number 6 is tomorrow. Number 7 is always a lot of fun, and we always have so many talented students and parents and other stakeholders, so we'll have a full house tomorrow night. So might I bring in extra seating.
It will be.
And then number 8, get to celebrate another set of state champions, and of course our Riverdale Lady Warriors are state champions again. So congratulations to the Warriors.
We'll bring them in, but that probably wouldn't be a good time the same night you have your art presentation with parking and everything. Yep. And who knows, we might have a boys team too by then.
Well, I'm hopeful.
It'd be nice.
Pretty amazing to be undefeated at this level, so that's pretty cool too. All right, number 9, hopefully Ms. Joyce will have some of those students. I thought it went real well, and this was the first year that every school was represented in Rutherford County. Is that correct? So, I'd like to think and hope that the response back from the students and the chaperone, all their comments were positive. And I had in my I had, for the first time in my group, in the 10 years that I've been doing this, I had all seniors, and that was my first opportunity, and it was a different experience. They just kind of take over and run with it, and actually had a lady from Central Magnet, and also a lady from Siegel, and so they were. It was nice to have Rutherford County students in my group. So, group 14. So, but it was fun. Number 10.
Number 10 is Textbook Adoption Report, ED 5099, and Textbook Certificate of Adoption Report, ED 2153. School systems are required to submit textbook adoptions annually on forms provided by the Tennessee Department of Education. All textbooks are adopted on a 6-year cycle. The local textbook adoption report shows newly adopted textbooks for 2016. Textbook adoptions includes the K-12 math, and Rutherford County Schools adopted textbooks during the 14-15 year. The Elementary, Middle, and High School Textbook Committee has recommended the purchase of the mathematics textbooks listed below for use beginning in 16-17 through 2020 through 21 school years. And then recommend approval also, the motion to approve the elementary, middle, high, and career and technical education school textbook purchase of the following textbooks for use beginning 2016-17 through 2020-21. If you remember, we put off the math last year, didn't adopt one at all, to bring it forward this year, and actually rolled over some money in the budget to do that from the end, got permission from the commission. And this was the regular year for CTE. So this one is timely. It was to be adopted this year. One of the nice things about the Curriculum Associates, the K-5, 6-8, probably the first time I remember where we had the same textbook that went all the way kindergarten through 8th grade. This is also the publisher used at the city schools this time. So when those kids come to us in 6th grade, they will have been in the same series too. So there's some real advantages, I think, this year. This is the more the loose leaf type. It's not the big hardbound textbook anymore, although there is a piece that goes home to parents that's a bound book to do that. But it's a little different style, and things are going to change in the textbook world really, really quickly. I was reading today where I believe North Carolina, it says they must purchase digital textbooks by 2017. So I think in the next 2 or 3 years, you're really going to start seeing changes in what happens in the textbook world. This probably is one of the first that you're seeing. But Mr. Zago's here if you got additional questions, because the committees have met several times, and it's what they selected.
Give the board a couple of minutes to look through it again, just to make sure everybody's satisfied. Again, you'll have opportunity to discuss again tomorrow evening.
We have a number. Most of it is the integrated math. If you notice, kind of in high school is what we're doing, but which is Carnegie. Much of that, but you also have students who have had Algebra 1 or Algebra 2 in middle school, so we have kids that need 2 or 3 extra courses, so then you get into things like the finite math, and of course you have the AP calculus, that sort of thing. So there's some different things in that you kind of have to add to it that's above, because they're required to take a math course every year in high school.
Coursework of algebra, geometry, algebra 2. We're just purchasing the exact number we need each year and phasing through. That way we're not double buying algebra, geometry, and algebra 2 and the other 3, math 1, math 2, and math 3.
Board Member Jordan, Calculus AP, that was your area of expertise, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
I am wondering, however, How long does this process take? Just pick one and tell me.
We began in November, finished the whole process for and the map together. This particular map section we did twice because we adopted everything once prior to the prior year, and then we did this one. But from about November until about 3 weeks ago.
How many times do they meet? You got any idea? I mean,
They meet 6 to 12 times as a group, depending. And a lot of them do breakout groups as well when we're looking at specific books within those groups. It's a very detailed and work intense mission.
I'm sure you tell them you appreciate their efforts.
Yes, sir, we do. It would be nice for everybody to.
Well, I appreciate their efforts. I'm sure everybody does.
Number 11.
Number 11 is under financial matters, and VALIC 403B and 457B changed to mutual fund investment platform from annuity. VALIC has offered to change our 403B and 457B plans from their annuity platform to their mutual fund platform effective September the 1st, 2016. This change will decrease the fees our employees pay at the average of 36 basis points or 0.36%. This change would save our employees about $44,000 per year in fees. The mutual fund platform will offer 20 investment options plus target date retirement funds. This is fewer investment options than we have now, but is in line with industry suggestions. Our employees who want more investment options will still be able to set up a self-directed Schwab PCRA account for their 403B and 457 accounts. Our employees will have the option to move their balances as of August 31st, 2016 to the mutual fund platform. If they choose to leave their existing balances in the annuity platform, they will continue to pay the higher fees. VALIC has been our ongoing 403B and now 457B provider since September of 2008. Our participating employees and former employees have over $12,500,000 in their accounts as of March 7, 2016. Recommend approval. The motion is to change Rutherford County Schools 403B and 457B plans from VALIC's annuity platform to their mutual fund platform effective September the 1st, 2016 as presented. And Mr. Samvig is prepared to answer questions or discuss this with you if you want to know some more.
Basically, this is a either-or opportunity. You can either stay put and pay the higher fees or move to the mutual fund and save.
But the new contributions going in will go into the mutual fund based, that an employee can leave his existing monies in the annuity
Okay.
line of products.
But again, they'll pay the higher fees with the annuity.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and we do, on a $100,000 account, that's $360 a year.
Okay.
We have a fair number of $100,000 accounts, people who've putting money in a good way.
I assume we'll communicate this information
Yes, sir.
through email
Yes.
and letter correspondence.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
okay.
Should have questions on this.
So, again, we have tomorrow. Okay, I guess we'll go to B.
B is substitute teacher service contract, our RFP 16-01. Vendor proposals for Rutherford County Schools substitute teacher services contract, RFP 1601, were due on February the 24th, 2016, and opened in the boardroom. After reviewing the proposals, staff recommends that the contract for substitute teacher services be awarded to PESG Educational Staffing Solutions as the lowest and best bidder. PESG's bid cost out at $2,222,098.28 for the actual subs we used from February 23, 2015 through February 12, 2016. For comparison purposes, The Advantage proposal cost out at $2,357,920.89. Might edit here, the reason it wasn't a year, there were snow days in there last year, and so you don't have exactly the same week all the way up. Staff also recommended that PESG's alternate proposal for the Schoolhouse Plus option be adopted beginning with the 2016-2017 school year. The alternate proposal has a 97% fill rate guarantee, and PESG will pay a bonus to subs who work at least 10, 15, or 20 consecutive days in a month. The bonus package works out to an extra $5 to $8.75 per day to the subs who work in our buildings on a consistent basis. The PESG alternate proposal cost out at $2,415,958.78 for the same period. The PESG alternate proposal appears to be very close fitting within the existing substitute 2015-2016 teacher budget. The budgetary contingency that we'll need to cover is additional costs if we are able to approach a 100% fill rate. The final piece is that if we are able to add an additional $5 per day raise to our subs for 2016-17, the cost will amount to $200,000 under the PESG alternate proposal. Recommend approval. The motion is to award Rutherford County Schools Substitute Teacher Service Contract RFP 16-01 to PESG Educational Staffing Solutions as the lowest and best bidder and accept their alternate proposal for the Schoolhouse Plus option.
We have Ms. Barnes, you can speak. Also, we have with us tonight Mr. Henry Bledsoe, who's President and CEO of PESG. So if board members, if y'all would like to, if you have questions. Ms. Barnes, you and Mr. Bledsoe both go to the podium, and that way
We can
he
do
might
that.
not feel so uncomfortable being up there by himself, too. So,
I doubt he's uncomfortable at the podium.
I figured probably not, too. Mr. Bledsoe, welcome.
And we appreciate him bringing his team with us. We've had the opportunity to meet everyone here and other members of the team and going through this process. As the proposal explains, we had the opportunity to meet.
See if your
several
mic
groups.
is on. See if the mic is on the green light.
It is.
Okay.
We had the opportunity to go through the bid process and review all of the bids that were submitted, weeded out those that did not meet the criteria that were laid out in our bid process, and invited one group back, PESG, to present to a committee of people that were selected at the central office to share with us specifics about their program. We were very impressed with PESG, the components they offered, especially this alternate proposal with the 97% fill rate guarantee, because you guys know the issues we've had with substitutes this year in particular, and the struggles at the school level trying to cover those absences in their buildings. Mr. Sandvik, of course, was able to put together all of these figures and these calculations to show that we are very close in the same figures and real close to meeting that same budgetary item that we have in place right now. And as he did note, excuse me, let me back up. When we submitted this bid, we asked for 3 different proposals, option 1, 2, and 3. Option 1 being our current bid payment, option 2 being an additional $5, which we had talked about, and then option 3, an additional $10, just in case. So the $5 extra, $200,000, if that is added to the budget, then we would continue to build on, that salary payment for our substitutes. That would bring us very close to surrounding counties. But we love the option for the alternate proposal. We think that would serve our system very well. And Mr. Bledsoe can tell you some things about their process. It's very impressive, the things that they do internally for their substitutes to build that team, to draw them in, to support their efforts in payments for health insurance, and the way that they can earn capital to help pay their health insurance every month by substituting on a regular basis. So there are lots of pluses in their program that we were impressed with, and we look forward to working with them. Mr. Bledsoe, do you want to add anything
You may want to introduce your team also, Mr. Bledsoe.
Yes, with me tonight is Kim Woodson. She lives in Watertown. She'll be heading up the implementation and enrollment process, and she actually holds everyone accountable to hit those 97% fill rates. So very intense on management. Also, Gordon Hanson has been with us for this week, and we're adding to our Tennessee field staff. Andy Coons has been with us now for several months, almost a year now, and Andy is part of the field staff that will head up the implementations. And more recently, we brought him over from GCA, Custodial Services. I want to thank you all for letting us have an opportunity to bid at the Tennessee School Board Association's talk with Superintendent and Mr. Blair and Aaron. I'm a Smyrna resident, and so this is especially meaningful. I've been reading the media pieces as we go through the year about fill rates not being acceptable. And so this is a special passion of ours to fill classroom and classroom management, make sure education happens when teachers have to have a day off or time off. I want to thank you for that, and at the risk of doing more in presentation, we have a very intense program. We have our own health care program, that benefit packages, medical, dental, vision, 401k, things like that we've designed specifically for substitute teachers and to attract and retain people who work part-time, temporary, seasonal jobs. And we have great success with it. We've been blessed. And we also have a passion for helping to enhance the substitute performance by helping them build relationships in the districts. When a substitute comes in, they should be part of the family of the district and not an outsider just coming in to sit in the classroom, babysit, if you will. So we have a real passion for that. Thank you for the opportunity to bid. We appreciate the committee's recommendation, and we look forward to serving Rutherford County Schools.
The last piece that I want to mention is the component that we'll be using is a component of Future Match
Yes.
for the actual sub-binder process. It's all done online, just like it is now. And the reports are amazing that we can generate at the school level, at the administrative level, to track substitutes, their participation, their absences, the fill rates, and a number of other things. So it's much different than what we have access to now. So again, it's just that next level up.
And everything's
That we're excited.
available on a phone app. So basically a substitute can, they get a job alert and their phone dings, it's a link. Click on the link, tells them a brief description of the job and accept or reject. I mean, within 15 seconds or so, you can take a job. And when that call goes in, but there's there'll be, if there's 500 substitutes, all 500 get the same text, the same instant, and first one that bids to do the job. With our incentive programs, we pay bonuses to the substitutes with the alternate proposal based upon 10 days of service, 15 days of service, or 20. We have at the end of the month, the last 4 or 5 days of the month, we will have substitutes calling and asking us to find them a job because they're close to hitting a bonus point. And so they'll actually be hunting for jobs. And so in Kim's department, we have a call center out in Nashville. We'll be setting up an office here inside of Murfreesboro in order to provide local service. And our people are on the phone at actually 5 a.m. because we service eastern side of Tennessee, which is Eastern Standard Time. So 6 o'clock there. Our office hours are normally 6 to 6, but because of time zone, we're actually open here at 5 a.m. So we start calling substitutes at 6 o'clock, and if jobs aren't filled, we normally are 100% filled the day before, 98 to 100% the day before, and it's always that morning of that kind of falls apart. And so we have people on phones and ready to call and implement last-minute absences.
So following your approval, we will get started immediately, setting up the process for next year, getting our employees loaded in, systems, start training with our teachers, our administrators, our central office staff, making those decisions, and how to roll out the program.
Ms. Alden?
I'm excited about the inclusion of the retired teacher component, where we have a pathway. We have so many very, very valuable teachers that have enormous experience with our system, and yet life has given them the opportunity to have a little more flexibility, a different kind of schedule, but they know our system. They know our schools. They know our administrators. And for this to include an incentive for those teachers to continue a relationship with our school system and continue to speak wisdom into our children. I'm so excited to see that and eager to see that, as well as the young teachers who maybe didn't find a placement, and yet this gives them the ability to become familiar with our administrators and have that interaction in the school system as they seek those job openings. So everything about this just sounds outstanding, and it's not lost on me either that opening a call center in Rutherford County. So we appreciate your commitment to the community.
Thank you, sir. We've already been in contact, Kim has, with MTSU. We'll be working for an intern program. Those are already being set up. We're waiting for the board vote to actually enact. But we speak regular to MTSU, and this is a very strong passion. In fact, Kim graduated from MTSU, as well as 4 or 5 of our staff all graduated there. So this is a particularly passionate area for us to be in. We want to make Rutherford County model.
Mr. Estes?
What other systems are you in Middle Tennessee?
We're at Lebanon and Granger. We just started in Middle Tennessee a couple years ago. It takes a little bit to get the word out, and it's not easy for everyone to change. And so we have 504 school districts we handle on a national basis. Mm-hmm. We just opened up in Florida, and Michigan, Indiana, Pennsylvania, and a couple other states. So we're the largest educational staffing company in North America. We education only. Kelly's bigger, but they do school and die in hospitals, and we only handle education.
Well, good luck.
Mr. Young?
With the bonus program, 97% fill rate, what would be the fill rate without the bonus? What do y'all normally staff at without providing bonuses?
We see that generally falling. First, PESG has a 97 to 98% fill rate in all 500 districts as an average. We see there are times we can get our fill rates up into the low to mid 90s without a bonus, but a lot of those districts are already paying $80 to $100 a day for subs. It's the competition to the local job market is the driving factor, and where we're looking to enhance pay and performance. We find that extra $5 to $8. The bonuses are paid out at $50 at 10 days, and $125 at 15, and $175 at 20 days. And it's not something you keep; you earn it every month. So there's always an incentive to catch that extra day, extra 2 days. And the fill rates, national statistics will tell you that fill rates are generally somewhere in and around the 80% range. 65% is the national average. According to STEDI, which is a substitute analysis group in the classroom team. The fill rates, generally speaking, are going to fall in that 80%, 75 to 82, 83 in most districts. That's where it falls. Very good recruiting, aggressive recruiting will get you up into that 88 or 90. But in order to get past that, because the job market at 4.5 to 5% active unemployment in that $8 to $10 an hour range, then what happens is you have to have more incentives, and they don't have to be large incentives, $5 an hour bump. We're talking about 50, 125, 175. But we do the health care program, and we give them a credit. This is PESG pays for this. Basically, if you do classroom management, you get a $10 a day credit on our health care premium. It's $300 a month, $295.50, and basically you get a $10 a day credit for every full day you work. You have to work 10 days. So the recurring theme is we're looking for people who have a commitment to our districts. And so at 10 days you get the bonus dollars. At 10 days you start to accumulate health care credits. $10 a day for a full day, $5 for a half day, retro back to the first day. So you can earn $200 credit on a $295 premium. So you can buy your health care for $95 a month if you work the 20 days. Plus you get an extra $175 in bonus. So at the current $65 rate, I believe it is, that would mean that you get $8.75 more. So you would get $73.75 a day equivalent. Plus you earned your health care down to $95.
Okay, let's say we are paying these bonuses and we're not seeing a 97% fill rate. What happens then? What do we do then?
We have a self-imposed penalty that we pay you $10 for every day we do not fill. Every absence short of 97%, we pay you a penalty payment that we self-impose on ourselves because without a measurable loss for non-fulfillment, guarantees kind of get lost. So what we do is we basically, if let's say your absences were supposed to have been 10,000 as 100%, and 9,700 absences would equal 97%. If we only filled 9,000, then we would have to pay you, which would be 90%, then we would have to pay you $10 a day times the 700 absences. And we pay that on a half day or full day, which is more than our markup would be on a half day. So it's really a fairly substantial repayment.
Ms. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm going to preface this in my questions by reassuring the board and Ms. Barnes that the questions I want to ask are not in any way, shape, or form questioning the vetting process that you guys went through. I know how conscientious and how careful you are and how important the substitute teacher program is to us. But of course, having over 25 years in the staffing industry and having done large transitions like this, including with the substitute teacher staffing, I do have a few questions that I'd like to ask. I know that we've been with Advantage for quite a few years now.
12, I believe.
And if I'm not mistaken, based on past conversations we've had in board meetings and reports that we've received, aside from the challenge of the fill rate, which obviously is a significant piece of the puzzle, that they had done a satisfactory job for us, that we'd not really had any complaints. Would that be an accurate assessment?
We've had a very satisfactory relationship with Advantage. They have accommodated all the needs that we have put forth to them over time.
Okay. And they were in the final running for this bid?
Yes,
Okay, so they weren't one of the contractors that got eliminated?
they were probably, Mr. Samuel, about 5th or 6th in the bid.
As far as dollars? Okay, because it didn't look like that huge of a difference, but obviously with the bonus and the fill rate guarantee, I mean, those are certainly nice pluses. I guess and I think some of the other questions have been asked, have already answered some of my questions. For instance, I did want to know, because I'll be very honest, I've never heard of your organization before, so that was one of my questions. How long have you been in business? I don't know if anybody specifically asked that. 11 years? And all of your operations nationwide are specifically devoted to nothing but education? Or, okay, so you won't be filling any other types of jobs or anything out of the center here in Murfreesboro or in Rutherford County?
We believe education deserves our full focus.
Okay. And you said Lebanon and Granger County are the other ones here in Tennessee, and have we talked with them?
I talked with Lebanon Special District, Scott Benson. I called him, spoke with him, spoke to the other person in our office who manages this process.
Okay.
We see very good reviews.
Okay. How long have you been in here with Lebanon? How long have you, Mr. President, how long, 2 years?
3 years. We're just finishing up our first full contract with Lebanon.
Okay.
And Granger's probably about a year and a half. And that's when we really started. When we first came into Tennessee, outsourcing substitute teachers was not legal. And we hired a lobbyist and actually changed the law in May of 2011. It became legal to outsource substitute teachers. And so when we did that, we wanted to wait to make sure that things were settled. Our commitment is only to you. We have no confusion about who we serve. We're here to serve schools and children in classrooms. And that's what our goal is to provide better education when temporary subs are needed.
Okay. Have you or are you going to be bidding the Murfreesboro City School System business?
That hasn't, yes.
Yes.
Yes, we will.
We look forward to that opportunity.
Pardon?
So we look forward to that opportunity.
Okay. Could create some competition for the subs too, but I think if with the bonuses and everything that you're offering, that will certainly make a difference, and I'm glad to hear that. On your health care coverage that you're offering, I'm assuming that it's in compliance with the Health Care Reform Act, or, okay, this isn't like a mini med plan, it is a true medical plan that meets the thresholds for the...
We have 3 medical plans to offer, 4 medical plans the substitutes get. The one that we focus the dollars on is, it's a true medical plan. It's just limited to $50,000 a year benefit. So what that means is you have a prescription card pharmacy, you can do as much pharmacy as you want or can stand, and then basically it tracks all medical. Office calls, everything. It's a traditional $1,500 deductible 80/20 plan, but it caps the annual expense at $50,000. So it really, for that person who's just coming out of college, 10-foot tall, bulletproof, 24 years old, it really solves the
I have one of those
need.
at my house.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we have 5 children and 3 grandchildren, so that begins to be the real issue. Because you never believe you're going to be sick until you really encounter those circumstances. And so we have a plan like that, which is huge. We have over 1,800 substitutes. We have 42,000 substitutes that we employ. We have about 1,800 of them on our health care. We have probably 3,000, 3,400 on our medical. I have a 35-year history as a claims payer for self-funded medical. I had about 190,000 employees I managed. And so that's kind of how all this was birthed, because I really have a passion for health care and benefits and delivering those fringe benefit pieces. But they can also buy our big the regular Blue Cross plans and all that if they want to.
Okay. And the fill rate that you're guaranteeing is pretty impressive. I know we've also had a lot of conversations about that challenge and how so much of it really was not truly the fault of the staffing company, but more related to the market itself, the job market and the availability of candidates. So I would be interested in hearing you elaborate maybe a little bit what it is. You've talked a little bit about, your call center and your recruiting, but maybe a little bit more detail, and I apologize, Mr. Chairman, I'll wrap it up pretty quick. A little bit more about what your plan is that you're going to be able to do differently to improve that fill ratio than Advantage did.
I appreciate that, and thank you. That's actually a great question, because it gets to the heart of it. We do our expertise. Our largest customer is 161,000 students. Our smallest is about 25 students. So we range the gamut between all those, and so it gets to be the challenge of how do you serve larger districts like Rutherford County, but also not neglect people like Lebanon or other districts to become smaller even. We have a process that we've developed over the past years, and we had no one who actually told us we couldn't do something, so we did a lot of things that would probably a little bit unorthodox. We created yard signs, like you would see garage sale signs. Your county will probably have 75 to 100 of those. You'll see them down most streets when you go down, and it talks about ESG, substitute teachers. We do job fairs, and we send it out through all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, all those things. And so we really are attracting for that younger person. We'll probably end up doing a couple of billboards. We might put them on the edges of Wilson County or Williamson County, and just to let people know we're here. And not that we're trying to start anything, but really what happens is when we recruit, we have a full service recruiting. Every building will have about an 8.5 by 11 inch sign that goes in by the administrative desk with cards that say, go to mypesg.com to enroll. We're looking for substitute teachers. We go to the colleges and universities. MTSU will be one, but we also go to Lipscomb and Vanderbilt. My two sons graduated at Vanderbilt. We'll go through these colleges, and we become a source for recruitment for highly qualified teachers. We have about 4,500 of our staff that are hired, all the way up to 6,000, 7,000 that are hired every year by schools as full-time teachers onto their staff. I think Lebanon hired, 20-some teachers from us, 20 plus of our substitute teachers the first week before school. They hired them, and then after the Christmas break, they hired 4 more. And I told Scott, I said, Scott, you never take the worst. You always take the best. Can we come to a compromise? And so we recruit so that we can be there to fulfill your needs. Not that we're there as your recruiting arm, but we have such a close relationship and partnership with schools. We end up providing those things that maybe become pain points, recruitments and things like that.
And I trust that we think that the bonus that you pay for consecutive days, I think it said, will be a plus too as far as recruiting and hopefully retention.
Yes, and actually, it's just slightly more liberal than that. It's 10 full or half days during the month.
Oh, okay. And
so
does it have to be at the same school, or can it be anywhere in the school
It can
system?
be anywhere in your district.
Okay.
And so it doesn't, now that they can work for us if they were to be with us in Lebanon schools, for example. If they work at Lebanon, that doesn't have anything to do with the bonus we pay here.
Right. No, that
So the bonus we pay here is only based upon buildings within Rutherford County schools.
okay.
So Murfreesboro schools wouldn't count. They're inside the Rutherford County, but they're not Rutherford County schools.
Right.
So
It would be
we
by
make a-
contract. That's
You know,
understandable.
we make a firm distinction, and we have that, and when you're a substitute, we have a dashboard, if you will, that you come in, and every time you sign in, there's it's kind of like a sports board, three more days to go, it's a bonus, you know, and so every time they log in for a job, they have to see how many days they have before they get a bonus. And so you know, once again, it's just a little reminder every time, you know, to take a job, and it works.
And that's the software that we had a glimpse of last week, Mr. Samuel and I had been on a webinar. It's really an impressive piece of software that the substitute uses, the teacher uses, and that the administration here has access to.
I appreciate both of you tolerating my questions, so thank you.
Mr. Jordan and then Mr. Holliday.
We raised the substitute pay a couple of months ago, $5, right? And it is our intent, and I'm reading it in this paragraph, it says, if we are able, and I did not put that in the motion, if you recall at that time, but that is our intention. As I understand this board from a couple of months ago, it is our intention to raise it another $5, which will put us either equal to or above the city of Murfreesboro, will it not? And even with,
Without having the notes in front of you.
yeah, me either.
Very close, if not equal to. That would put us at, well, it would put us at $80
$80.
for our teachers, 75 for licensed teachers, and 70 for everyone else. So very close.
Okay.
And then the incentive on top of that would push the need.
Exactly. Now, Ms. Barnes, and I don't, maybe I shouldn't even ask this question, but anyway, that won't stop me. Since we talked about this a couple months ago, and boy, that was an extensive conversation that we had that night on this very problem. Are we better off, worse off, or about the same since then?
Mr. Samuel and I had run that, we're about a 2% increase since.
So we're a little better.
We added an additional $5.
And that leads me to my next question. What's our fill rate? Come close. 87. And these fine folks who look very eager to go to work right immediately, and I suggest they do that, are guaranteeing 97. You heard that, didn't you? Of course, what we're concerned about, and what this board repeatedly, y'all weren't here that night, and I'll wrap this up. We want instruction time. That's what we want.
Yes, sir.
We don't want anybody not there. We want instruction time. That's the whole point.
And I think you were quoted in the article in January.
I don't remember. Mr. Wilson sometimes takes advantage of me. No, he doesn't. I'm kidding. But I think about everybody on this board really had some sort of comment that night about the pay or instruction time, and we went through all these things, and because somebody in that school, and usually it's more than one somebody, that's all they're doing on many days, is trying to cover classes that they got nobody to cover it. And that was a problem, as I understand it. A lack of subs was a problem, and that they were going somewhere else was a problem. And I submit that you're on the right track of them going somewhere else with additional money, for sure. Now, whether there are actual bodies out there to do this job adequately or not, I don't know, but I assume there are. I mean, my goodness, MTSU ought to supply us right away if they are impressed with your program.
Mr. Jordan, I guarantee you there's bodies out there to do this job. It's just a matter of really focused recruiting. And really, people want the opportunity to serve in schools. This is really a calling. It's not for the faint of heart to stand in front of a classroom of 25 to 40 kids. It's not. But we sent out a blind survey to 42,000 substitutes, had 16,000 of them replied. And in that blind survey, the number one thing was not money. Money was actually third. The very first thing was value, to feel valued and respected for the job they do. You know, it's just like when you come into the building, one of the first things we recommend, we try to train principals, building principals to help understand how to do this. And, you know, do you have a mentor teacher that you could assign? When they're down that hallway, they don't know where the restrooms are, they don't know where the break room is, the staff room is, they don't know where the lunchroom is. You know, take them in. If you invited someone into your house, extend the same guest privileges to a substitute teacher guesting in your building, at least the first time, that you would to a guest in your home. Show them around, make sure they're welcome. So we teach people how to value people. Number two thing on the list about feeling valued, number two, was education and training. So most of the substitutes do not feel qualified to enter into your classrooms, Mr. Earl, because of they don't feel that they've been prepared as well as they could be or should be. But if I'm going to have you work in a tool and die or a hospital in the morning and a classroom in the afternoon, I'm focused on getting you into a job where I can make an override or commission. I'm not focused on your quality, I'm focused on your quantity. And we focus on quality as well as delivering quantity. And we find the better we prepare subs, the more anxious they are to fill classroom absences. And so they really, when they walk in, they're prepared. Notes, teacher notes, and we train them on classroom management on a regular basis. We actually will design our training programs in conjunction with what Rutherford County Schools would like us to help focus on. We insist on things like bloodborne pathogen and privacy, student privacy. We focus on that every year in training. You know, they have, when they come back to school, they have certain modules they have to do just as refreshers, just like your teachers do when you bring them into an orientation. You know, we think that should be for our substitutes.
Mr. Holliday and then Mr. Hodge.
Just because of our discussion, is there a contractual premium for full-time placements if we hire one of your folks?
No.
Wow, that's
We'd be
generous.
happy if you want to pay us, but no.
Thank you.
Well, that's a service we provide because it's a partnership.
It's an excellent service. Thank you.
I got a couple questions. Just curious, how many, I guess, of your hires, will a lot of your hires come from the existing people we're using now, Advantage?
Well, in a transfer from an existing staffing company, the challenge is that, of course, they're not going to cooperate. So what will happen is we'll post inside the schools. That's why we asked if we could start recruiting for placements during August or during April and May while school's in session. But really, what will happen by the time we do, we would hope that out of the 400 and 410 substitutes currently with Advantage, that we would get the majority of those, at least 80, 90% of them in rollover. Normally, we at least get in that 85, 90%. But once again, we'll really work hard in the community by posting signs. We'll be doing ads in the paper. We'll be doing the schools. We'll know the teachers should help. You know, anyone that has a connection to existing substitutes. Once again, we did it on a 3x5 business card. You don't have to remember what to say. Just give them the card so they can log in. And those are posted at every. As long as we have permission under the school year contract, I don't think that would be a problem. But basically, we would put our signs up in the administrative office for every building to help substitutes point in the right direction. So yes, we will get the majority of it, not all.
And we will also publicize, of course, through our website.
Here's the second question I have, this Ms. Barnes. What's our average daily that we're having?
Good question. I will tell you that this past Friday, we had 352 absences with a very high fill rate.
That was our teachers, our absences?
That is not a common number. Typically 200 to 75. That's an average.
Just out of that 275 or whatever, were they all filled or?
On this past Friday?
Yeah.
No, they're rarely all filled.
Okay.
And it can range from 10 unfilled to 75 unfilled to 100 unfilled. It really depends on the day of the week, Mondays and Fridays being our sugar days. And weather, good weather, sunny days, and times when the flu is going around. We've talked about that before. It really varies.
I'd say 97% would be good. You can get
I
there.
think so.
Ms. Moore?
Couple more questions, I promise I'll wrap up. Maybe offering a bonus for always being available on Fridays might be something to think about. Just saying.
And Monday.
And this is one of those, I assume it goes without saying too, but I still want to ask, because committing to this kind of a fill rate, I know we have certain criteria that have to be met in terms of background checking and vetting the people. I'm assuming that those standards will be as high, if not higher, than what we required of Advantage?
Yes.
And we do fingerprinting the whole bit, right? Okay. And one other question. With the transition, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, that sometimes it cannot always be, it's not always a very pleasant situation with, especially with this big a contract, in a staffing company that's been here as long as Advantage has. Starting, and I understand completely the need to start recruiting ASAP, absolutely. But do we anticipate a concern that starting to publish flyers in the schools and recruiting and things from Advantage might impact our fill rate for the remainder of the school year?
Let me answer that. I've actually had a long discussion with Janet.
I figured you had.
She talked about this. I'm, alerting her to this process that we're going through tonight. And she's been very gracious through the whole thing.
She's worked very hard.
Working relationship. Again, we've been friends for a long time. We've been working partners. And she has actually stated that she'll do everything she can to help us through the next 2 months. Who does not expect any negative trends and will help us even publicize. Because she wants her consistent people to continue.
Sure. Yeah, she's a great manager, good person, so I don't doubt that for her for a minute, but, not sure about the rest of the climate with that company, so I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I figure you're gonna need those people that are working now. You just mentioned that a minute ago. And website and a sign or two will do wonders, but the principals are really the key to this thing, because I don't know how much time it takes, but, well, that's not true. I do know how much time it takes. And it's misery on some days. And I would think they would be your prime. As soon as these people find out exactly what you're offering, and that's what you're counting on, otherwise there's no sense in doing this. I think the principals would help you get the word out to every substitute that comes in the building that there's a better world ahead, hopefully.
And we would look forward to that. And actually, through the leadership of the school, we'd be happy. One of the first onboarding steps, once we do a general setup meeting with the district to look at the parameters and how we operate and all the different, we call it an A to Z meeting, kind of cover all the bases on it. And one of the first things is to really educate and train the executive staff, and then go to the building principals and the executive clerical staff in the buildings and help educate and train them. And you're right, they will be eyes and ears on the ground. Building principals call him and her staff every day and alert them to possible recruits, but also tell them where they think they might have forecasted shortages.
More money, bonuses, health insurance. I may think about a retirement. Come out of retirement. Any history available? Political science?
You have to pass a criminal history background.
Oops.
It's a higher standard than that.
Can't do that one.
Mr. Hodges recognized.
Mr. Barnes, do you know who's doing the city right now?
I believe they do it themselves.
Okay, so if you having that deal with the city or whatever, you don't foresee a problem with both, having a problem filling both systems?
Yeah, one thing, this is for Mr. Holliday. We have already compiled a list of retirees for the past 3 years, and we have that email and letter ready to go out to tell them about this opportunity. So that's another group that will.
It just builds our community. I mean, it'll help our education, it'll help our students, it'll help our administrators, and it will just do wonders for our community.
The only thing it won't help with is traffic.
Okay.
Anybody else? Ms. Bledsoe, I think you can feel vetted tonight, okay? So thank you for being here, and I suspect you'll be here again with us tomorrow evening also.
Yes, sir.
Okay? All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Number 12.
Number 12 is our policies, revised policies. Policy 3.206, community use of school facilities. The revision allows a one-year approval for an initial request and annual renewals thereafter for a maximum of 10 years. The revised policy also includes a detailed fee schedule. Policy 5.302, sick leave. The revision provides employees with 2 bereavement days per qualifying event. Policy 1.108, nepotism. The revision removes the requirement to publicly notify the board prior to the employment of a relative of a board member, director of schools, administrator, county commissioner, or any appointed or elected official. The revision is recommended by TSBA in order to comply with current state law. In Policy 5.305, the Family Medical Leave Act, the revision changes the word "or" to the word "and" in the first paragraph of the policy regarding eligibility for family and medical leave. The revision is recommended by TSBA in order to comply with the current federal regulations. Recommend approval. The motion is to approve the revisions to policies 3.206, 5.302, 1.108, and 5.305 on the second and final reading as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question. I guess I should have asked this the last time it came up, but it's really just a curiosity thing on the change in the nepotism policy. Because I rather like that, you know, having to notify, but I understand that it was recommended by TSBA. Can you share with me what the current state law is that TSBA felt like contradicted with that policy?
I didn't hear which one you were talking about, I'm sorry.
On the nepotism, the TSBA recommendation that we shouldn't do that any longer, what is the law that it conflicts with?
The law actually regarding that policy does not have the word publicly in it. And so, for whatever reason, the policy that they put out last year when we adopted that, during those new legislative changes, included that publicly language, and occasionally they do an audit, you know, of their policies to make sure everything's in compliance, and when they did that most recently, they realized that that word publicly is not in statute.
Okay.
And so they sent out a recommendation to districts that contract with them that be removed, since it's not a requirement.
All board members would be made aware
Okay.
under your policy, but it wouldn't have to be News Journal or or radio or something like that.
Gotcha. And I see the publicly now, so that was emphasized, and I hadn't. Thank you.
Mr. Holliday?
I have interest on policy 3.206 as we continue to try and work on that.
Could I interrupt you for a second?
Please.
Ask the board if you're probably going to suggest an amendment to that, is that correct?
Well, certainly not tonight.
Well, this is second final reading tonight.
Well, no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Board meeting
That's
tomorrow.
right. This is Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'm off track. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. My apologies.
Yeah, just looking for consensus among the board so that we can, our work session. I do have to disclose that I'm involved in a community organization that I would consider to be a public education institution that involves our children of school age and occasional use of public school facilities. So I have an interest in this. You notice the purple language that I spoke with our staff attorney as well as the board attorney, and they went back and looked at the discussion in the committee meetings and found that there was interest in acknowledging organizations that are helping our students and organizations that are partnering with us in order to accomplish things in the community, even if those endeavors are beyond our K through 12 focus. And one of the cases is Motlow University or Motlow Community College, and that they would occasionally use facilities that we have when they have overflow before they continue to expand their Smyrna campus there on Sam Ridley. And they've done that in the past and may continue to do that, may return to us with a request of that nature. And along those lines, they are inclined to assist us with tuition discounts and certain things in our dual enrollment activities that we could acknowledge as in-kind contributions. So the attorneys have come up with this information here. Public education institutions, post-secondary education institutions, and government entities shall be permitted use of school facilities without charge. Now, that helps to allow us to partner with somebody here in the community, but it may not be specific enough to say those entities that are contributing to Rutherford County, because it's costing Rutherford County in order to have that facility up and running. And so in order to be more true to the Rutherford County taxpayers, if we were to add to that language that public education institutions, post-secondary education institutions, and government entities, comma, with an in-kind relationship approved by the director of schools shall be permitted to use the use of school facilities without charge. I'd appreciate the board's feedback in this work session opportunity that the director of schools would then have the opportunity to acknowledge, yeah, these folks are helping us out. It's worth it to us in order to allow them to have this access. Or, no, I've never seen these folks before in my life. They opened up an office here in Rutherford County or something like that, but they're not doing a thing that necessarily helps Rutherford County schools. It may be that this language would allow just that little bit of discretion, and I'd ask Mr. Reed and Ms. McLeod to weigh in as well as we talk about this.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that change from be permitted to request. I don't think anybody should be permitted unless they request and then we approve the request.
Ms. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll ask Mr. Holliday a question. I understand that the in-kind philosophy, and quite frankly, I agree with it, but I'd be curious to know, can you share some of the organizations specifically that we're talking about now? I mean, a little more clearly define in-kind, perhaps, and where that definition line would be drawn?
Yeah, well, we'd certainly be talking about that Motlow relationship where they have tuition discounts. That would certainly be, one of those. The Ethos Youth Ensembles is the organization that I'm a part of, and it is tailored toward band students and such. And along those lines, they have instrumentation that they share with various schools. And so a school that may not have a timpani or something like that, they would have use of that, in an in-kind relationship. So those are two examples that I'm familiar with from where I live and the circles that I'm in. But there may be others that I would be comfortable with the director of schools rendering decisions on.
Thank you.
I guess when you look at, what we're talking about with director of schools, I guess if you approve something, it'd be for that year. If they're gonna use the facility, would that be true, or just a one-time deal, or what's your?
Mr. Hodge, I would even think on a case-by-case, one-time event. When they make application, I think Mr. Young's addition here of may request use of facilities, that request, this would be an exceptional circumstance, and on a case-by-case basis. Now, in the event of like Motlow, it may be Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock, for the semester or something like that. But it would be, on a case-by-case circumstance by application.
Let me throw. I'm just throwing something else out. How about board approval? By board approval.
Can I speak to that just a second, Mr. Hodge? My interpretation of that was it didn't get on the agenda if Mr. Odom didn't approve the in-kind relationship. If it gets to the agenda, he would have approved the in-kind relationship and then present it to you for final approval. It would be what I thought you were suggesting.
So what you're saying, if Mr. Odom approves it, it's still got to come to the board though?
Right.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that, but
I mean, I think we're gonna, we're gonna have to go through a screening process anyway when these forms are submitted to make sure everything on it's accurate, it's the proper group, and it's in the proper category, and they're being charged appropriately. So it wouldn't get to the board level until all of that was in place and correct. So, and by the same token, so we'd be reviewing that to make sure that there was an appropriate in-kind contribution for it to proceed to the agenda for board approval.
So anytime that was to come up, I'm just trying to make sure I understand you right. Anytime that was to come up, Mr. Odom would approve it. It's automatically going to be on the agenda to come to us.
I don't think we could not bring it to you for approval. It would have to be on the agenda for approval.
Okay, I mean, does that have to be written somewhere in here, or
Well, the
just?
policy requires board approval for requests, so I think you're just adding an extra layer there. I mean, in my interpretation, that's more of a fee issue that would be reviewed, like I said, like the other fees would be, and make sure that everything's done appropriately. If it were a regular fee request on a fee form and something wasn't accurate, we would send that back to the school and have them reevaluate it and fill it out correctly before we presented it to you. By the same token, if it was not an appropriate in-kind contribution, we would send that back to the school and the organization to renegotiate before we put it back on the agenda.
All right.
So tomorrow night, when we receive this, is this going to be, are we going to need to do a motion to change, or can it come back, since we all seem to be in accordance with this tonight,
I can revise it.
can we revise, is that the desire of this board to revise, and then we can, we'll vote tomorrow night?
I think that's a good idea. I like Mr. Young's use of the word request, which ought it can just be added to the sentence. Shall be permitted use of school facilities without charge pending a request to the superintendent of the schools. And it wouldn't bother me at all, even though it may be adding a layer, as Ms. McLeod just said, just to make sure that we put board approval as required at the end of that. But if that's covered already, okay.
Mr. Estes?
I've just got a question about when a private school comes to our system, like I know we've got David Lipscomb some nights at one of our schools. Do they have to prove insurance to us?
Yeah.
They do?
They do.
Okay. That was,
So will we receive the change prior to the meeting tomorrow night? Is that possible? The language can,
You mean like prior to a copy being handed to you at the meeting,
yes, ma'am.
or during the day sometime? Sure.
Yes, ma'am, just email it. Okay. Because we're going to change, you're going to change this permitted to request, and you're going to add the phrase approval by the director of schools. Is that correct?
Right, that's what you choose for me to do.
Mr. Reed?
I like the word request too, because there's so many for-profit, private entities out there now for education and other things that I think to just open it up is a little bit dangerous and not wise, in my opinion.
Mr. Reed?
I do think we need to have some language in there saying that it does require board approval, so it could be approved by the director of school and by the board.
Okay.
Have it both covered. But just to be clear with respect to what the board's intent is, with respect to David Lipscomb and their program they're operating in the school system, we're saying that if indeed they have insurance, they meet the other requirements of in-kind contributions, director of schools approves them, and that comes to the board, is that something, the type of thing that you're wanting to allow to occur without fees, without charges for the use of facilities? And this is a private.
In-kind carries weight.
Right.
That's what we're,
and they have some of our teachers in their class, so I mean, it's not like they're getting something. I don't know whether they're charging our teachers or not, I can't tell
I'm
you.
not sure if that's in kind or not. When you think in kind, you're receiving something from them. If all they're doing is having some of our teachers in their program, I don't know that that will be in kind.
Right, they're going to have to discount the Rutherford County teacher's tuition or something. They're going to have to establish some monetary value, some stake in the community in order to establish an in-kind relationship. If they don't have an in-kind relationship, they can still pay the fee, use the facilities. But the only way to get to the facilities free of charge is to have a director of schools vetted and board-approved in-kind relationship.
Is there some way to phrase this in kind that would be?
Well, I think we're trying to keep it broad so it gives discretion to the director of schools and the board to make those decisions as they come up. There's been a lot of discussion with respect to private universities and how to treat them and whether we charge them fees or not over the last few months. So I'm just trying to make sure I understood what.
To clarify in that section, are you talking about an in-kind relationship just for universities? Or are you talking about an in-kind relationship for public education and governmental entities? Because in my mind, those are two different things. I mean, we're typically not going to have an in-kind relationship with, the landfill or conservation department or somebody. I mean, we have allowed governmental entities and other public education institutions, like other school systems, to use our facilities at no charge. So are we applying the in-kind to all of those categories or just universities?
We've always talked about governmental entities not paying any fees if you're a governmental entity.
I mean, just as an example too, for, we have other school systems, basketball teams or bands, a lot of times, who come and practice at our facilities and even spend the night in locker rooms for a competition that's at MTSU the next day. So, and we have not charged those groups. I guess the in-kind may be that if we go to their county, they would do the same for us, but I mean, we won't know that at the time of the request.
Go ahead, Mr. Holliday.
Well, I mean, I guess this is where a little bit of discretion and the director's vetting process comes in. And if there's a letter from the director of schools of that county or that LEA that says, hey, anytime you need to stay at our school, you're welcome, as well, then that could establish an in-kind relationship, or something of that nature. I do see it as for all entities. And so, yeah, if the landfill was going to have governmental use, doesn't that fall outside of this, that they can use these facilities free of charge anyway? I mean, because I guess I'm struggling with an in-kind use. But if they're going to have a public hearing or something like that, they should be able to.
I think a Rutherford County government institution should be allowed to use Rutherford County schools for free of charge.
Yeah. Is there a way that we can easily?
Yeah, I can play. We can say that, and yes, we can cover that.
All right.
They just did this at Walter Hill.
Right.
Did they not?
Right. The other thing, which I don't know if we want to do or not, with respect to other schools who use our other public schools in Tennessee that use our facilities, we might just want to say they may use our facilities free of charge if they're a Tennessee public school. And whether you want to do that or not, I'm just saying that's another option to take care of the issue with respect to sports programs using our facilities, and we reciprocate later on to use their facilities. To require us to go out and get a letter every time someone wants to use our facilities would be a pretty heavy burden to do.
We may want to take the won and loss record.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I will say, though, that, janitorial issues are still in place. And if somebody's going to use the facilities outside of our county, I like them going through the application process.
Which we still have the discretionary power of.
Yeah, we have the ability to make it free of charge, but they go through the process, which allows us to go over, look, there's this amount and this amount and this amount.
I think we really would like to give the director that discretion, and then the board can, weigh in.
Okay.
At that time.
Maybe what you're saying, the process of coming back to the board in that, because sometimes who places in the tournament is on top of it, and you may not have a meeting. And I understand what you're saying. If it is government, maybe you can go ahead, because I think your timeline for athletic events and tournament, TSSAA, can be really close to where you might not even have a board meeting between the two. I mean, you, Mr. Jordan, you speak to that, you know
That's
what
right.
I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
So what I think, what Mr. Reed is saying is there may be cases where we may not be able to bring it back to the board for something like that, simply timeline.
Well, in football, girls' basketball, and spring fling, you wouldn't have 4 days, and 2 of them would be a weekend. So that presents a problem.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Reed.
Well, you have different categories of users here, so I know the issue we have is a very, very broad issue. And to the extent you don't have to bring everything back for approval, to the extent you can carve out those things that you want to allow in the schools, we should probably try to allow those to be approved without coming back to the board. So if we want to say government entities within Rutherford County may use Rutherford County schools without charge, I've heard that's kind of, I think there's a consensus for that. With respect to public schools in the state of Tennessee, I don't know for sure whether there's a consensus for other public schools within the state of Tennessee to use our facilities without charge. I'm hearing kind of different things on that. But that could be an option, and that would allow them to go ahead and use all the sports programs and all that, like we've been doing, without coming through the process of requesting fee waivers. But when you're talking to the private tournaments, all that's going to be covered under the same normal policy you have. But for those exceptional situations where you have these Motlow programs, where you have, which are not a Tennessee public lower school, it would be something at that point I think would have to go through director of schools, come back to the board to be approved for the Motlow type programs out there, the Lipscomb type programs out there, and the board could determine on a case-by-case basis whether you want to allow it or not. And maybe you don't even require an in-kind contribution. You just look to the program and see if the benefits are there for the school system that you think is either they serve our teacher population, they serve our students, or they do give us some kind of in-kind contribution. And at that point, the board has the discretion on a case-by-case basis to allow some exemptions on a limited basis.
I like the language that Mr. Reed has suggested there, provide benefits to the system or an in-kind contribution. That's nice.
So why don't we, try to rework some language in the policy, and we'll send that out to you guys during the day tomorrow. You can look at it, and then we can discuss it tomorrow night. To the extent there's changes you guys want to make, you can make changes on it tomorrow night, and we can do that.
Thank you. Just a question. So I'm kind of assuming that right now, as far as especially the example that was used of visiting schools, and like we have a school that, kids spend the night in our locker room or whatever, are we currently in those kind of situations, we're not charging, correct?
You're not charging, no.
Okay. I guess the only concern I can think that I would have with that is if we have situations like that occur a lot, would be what our exposure is as far as expenses. How much is it costing us for the use of the facility to provide that accommodation? I'm not opposed to the thought at all. I just wonder how much.
I'm sure there's a cost factor
us.
there, and I don't know how often the Rutherford County schools use other schools in the state and are in similar situations with other school systems. I would think that would occur. So we're probably not paying them anything for those use benefits. How that equals out, I don't know. And no one's going to be able to measure that because we don't keep measurements for that. So it's reciprocation is what it is, and whether we want to do it or not.
Mr. Chairman, as it pertains to the agenda, do you think that 3.206 should be set up for tomorrow evening as a separate item?
That's what I was going to suggest, is that we go ahead and do second and final on the other three, and then we'll take that one last.
I think so. I think
We'll do that housekeeping tomorrow night.
okay, a joint motion on the other three, and then we'll take 3.206.
We can just retype that for you. We can revise it tomorrow to
Okay.
read that way.
Ms. Joyce, would you separate that out for us? Okay, thank you.
The only other thing, just to comment on 3.206, you may want to think about when it will become effective. it may be best for that, if we make the change to it, to have it effective at the beginning of the next school year. That would give principals time to go to their groups or use their schools and give them time to inform them of the new rules with associated with it, and give them more time to acclimate to the new system and understand it better. It also will allow you that if in the event you end up comparing charges that have been collected by schools during this school year have been, you don't have a broken year, you have a full school year of the old system under the current rules that we have, with each school kind of doing their own thing, and you compare that apples to apples to next year and how much income the schools derive next year under the new policy. So if the board if it's inclined to do it, it might be a good idea to have this policy become effective beginning the next school year. And that's when this would start.
That'd be August 1st.
That would be a good date, because
We want to keep up with the money too, because if we recoup our money, approximately, close, hopefully, if we go over it, we want to cut that 60/40.
Correct.
And if we don't, then we'll want to raise it, I think. I think we'll probably do fine, but we shall see.
Mr. Holliday, did you have something else?
No, I was just in agreement with an August 1st implementation.
Me too.
Anybody else? Okay.
There are a number of other changes in red on this thing. Do we want to discuss any of the other? I do not, but do we want to discuss anything else in the policy change?
Everything that's in red was there last
Okay,
meeting.
all right.
And if anybody, further discussion also can be had tomorrow evening.
Sure,
So,
absolutely. I'll make the point before we get to tomorrow evening, same one I made the last time. It is, if we have generally got everybody on the same page here and reasonably happy with this, we need to pass it and implement it, and then we can tweak if I have to.
number 13.
13 is for information only, and this is one of your policies. Board of Education Policy 1.108 states in part, members of an immediate family should not be assigned to the staff in the same school plant unless some unusual circumstances exist which makes it in the best interest of the educational program as approved by the Executive Committee. Any exception to this policy shall be reported to the board at the next regularly scheduled board meeting. The Executive Committee concurs with the Assistant Superintendent for Engineering and Construction that Austin Carpenter be offered employment as a warehouse clerk in our maintenance department. His father, Don Carpenter, is a plumber in the maintenance department. No supervisory issues or any there, but it's the same plant, same building. You know, one of the things we've found in some cases is that sometimes a relative, we go through a lot of classified employees. We had that discussion today. The number of changes we see in custodial staff and the other. Sometimes if you've got one that's really good and they're accustomed to us, that sometimes another family member is not a bad idea.
Help solidify that.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes because they don't always suggest it to a relative unless they're kind of satisfied themselves. But we do have a nepotism policy. We need to follow it closely. But it does give us a way to look at this, and this is one of those cases which we're notifying you, policy 1.108.
14, I don't believe there's anything to add tonight with the insurance
No, sir, we meet next Thursday.
next Thursday, okay? Number 15, big news today out of the General Assembly with announcement. Chairman Hodge?
Mr. Ramsey, he's announced today that he's not going to run for reelection next go-around, and I think it said he'd served 24 years, I believe, and served a long time. Everybody has a copy of the bills and everything from TOS. Mr. Oldham and I discussed, we looked over at a lot of the highlighted ones are the ones you may want to look at more than some of the other stuff. Some of the other stuff, we looked over at a lot of the highlighted ones are the ones you may want to look at more than some of the other stuff. Some of the other stuff, we looked over at a lot of the highlighted ones are the ones you may want to look at more than some of the other stuff. Some of the other stuff, we looked over at a lot of the highlighted ones are the ones you may want to look at more than some of the other stuff. Some of the other stuff, we looked over at a lot of the highlighted ones are the ones you may want to look at more than some of the other stuff.
Well, there's nothing really earth-shattering, but I think everything is in, and they'll be going through it pretty quick. So, nothing really has really stood out a whole lot to me. So, yeah, you may just want to take a look at them, and unless you have something, Mr. Odom, that
Now, the House Education Committees are scheduled to finish this week, the subcommittees. So if it says roll 2 weeks, I don't know whether they're going to make it or not, but if it said roll 1 week, it would be on their agenda today and yesterday and today, House committees. Today was the Senate committee, so probably while we're sitting here looking at it, several things happened today that I'm not, but they were wrapping it up this week, is what they said. I watched just a brief time this morning, that's what the chair said. We're going to wrap it up this week.
Mr. Torres would send you out an alert, is that not correct?
Correct.
And then you can alert us so we can contact our legislators.
other than that, I don't have anything else.
Thank you, sir. Who knows what happens between tonight and tomorrow, so.
I would like to point one out to you on page 11. This is a resolution by Ketron, General Assembly confirmation of appointment Amy Gullion, Education Standards Recommendation Committee for English Language Arts and Mathematics. It's passed, referred to the calendar committee. She is Mark Gullion's wife, also, and she is a teacher at Smyrna Elementary School.
And she made
So I think we make a note of that. The state really picks on her a lot, I'll tell you. Yeah, she's really.
She made a presentation or a talk to us a few months ago, if I recall, so, okay, that's great.
Mr. Chairman, page 3, number 10, right in the middle of the page. I've actually had some people ask me about this one that proposes an amendment to the Article 11, Section 12 of the Constitution of Tennessee to affirm the General Assembly's sole discretion in the establishment of a system of public schools. Is there anything lurking behind that that maybe we need to know about?
Some of this was discussed a little bit on Chalkbeat and some of those things today, and there's two sides to this sometimes. The question was, what does this do with the Shelby County, the Hamilton County lawsuit against the state for funding, plus about 4 or 5 other districts around Hamilton County have joined in that lawsuit too. And it wasn't clear what effect this might have on that, so you couldn't tell whether it was to, the sponsor of the bill says to keep renegade judges from going out and doing certain things as far as funding and requiring it. It would be sole discretion of the legislature. But people are asking questions to follow up what you say about, are there other implications tied to this?
So the answer is yes.
I would say so.
I think part of that is probably the sponsor. But I just, well, you're right. I think that the, I think we're not really exactly sure what that means, to affirm the General Assembly's sole discretion. Well, I don't know. Why are we going to affirm it? It's in the Constitution. It says so. I mean, I don't know. I'm uncomfortable with that whole thing.
Anytime you want to change the Constitution, you just, gives you rise of at least some pause.
Long time in the state of Tennessee, doesn't it?
All that.
Yeah, I listened to and watched the subcommittee debate when this was introduced, and yes, the process is extensive. If they were to pass it this year, then it has to pass again in another year, and then it goes to the ballot, and it's a very, very long process, but Representative Dunn said, at least we can get started. Representative Dunn is also the lead sponsor of the voucher bill, And that is, part of why we would give pause to this. But some of the things that he expressed was he was looking to other states where they would consider funding to be at an insufficient level, and they would argue that activist judges said not only that the state needs to address this situation, but you need to address this situation by raising funding to this level. And that's really the motivation for Representative Dunn and others who are in support of this bill, is to be able to say, even if a judge were to find a case that questions whether or not the state legislature is fully funding or fully implementing public education, you have no standing to say anything on that, because we passed a constitutional amendment that says the sole discretion is that of the legislature. So you have no standing judicial branch. In that regard, I think that this is a statement of accusation and lack of confidence in the judicial branch of government. I mean, there are three forms of government, and the balance between the three is appropriate and beneficial. And for one branch of government to assert itself and say, oh no, when it comes to public education, we are the only authority. And that's really the motivation of this constitutional amendment. And quite frankly, I find it to be inappropriate. It does set up an answer to the question that we continue to answer with, or the question we continue to ask with vouchers, of how can you possibly answer a failing school with a solution that just waves a white flag of surrender? We give up. Let's give it to somebody else. The responsibility is the state legislatures to provide that education. If we happen to rank 47th in funding, then a court case might come. And those who said that this constitutional amendment is not necessary said that when the small schools case had come to the judicial branch before, the judicial branch did not, the judiciary in the state of Tennessee did not overreach. They simply said, we find that there is insufficient funding for some of these rural school districts. State legislature, fix it. And the overreach comes in some other places around the country where the judicial has come in and said, not only are we going to say that we find that there is fault here, but we're going to mandate what would be acceptable remedy. And so that's kind of the motivation of this thing. Again, though, I think it's overreach by one branch of the three.
When the legislature passes a law, it's always open to interpretation by the court system that Mr. Holliday just talked about. And the legislature, I never met a legislature yet that didn't hate that because of how the law was interpreted. I don't always agree with either side or whatever, but I'm just saying that it seems to be inappropriate. It's pretty well founded in American history that that's the way we're going to do it. And it makes me nervous that, and now that Mr. Holliday has spoken, I feel even more nervous with that piece of legislation. I think there's something behind that it may be years away, but I think there's something there that we're not going to like. The public isn't going to like it.
The Federal Relations Network, can't talk. Anything to report?
Well, the Senate is having additional hearings on the implementation of the Every Child Succeeds Act that Chairman Alexander is making his best efforts to make sure that the Department of Education implements that the way that the Congress intended for it to be implemented. Also, it was notable that the Secretary of Education was finally confirmed. He had been in an interim status, but we do have Secretary of Education confirmed now.
Anybody else? Hey, board discussion. We're celebrating the state championships. Would also like to commend our Blue Raiders, men and women, for making it to the big dance. And I will be proudly wearing my blue tomorrow evening to celebrate that accomplishment. So feel free to join me, if you will. I know, Mr. Holliday, that's going to be an issue for you, but it's okay. Mr. Jordan, did you have something you wanted?
Well, you all in there's only one team, and they're blue. Everybody knows that. I didn't know there was another one. Blackman won today, too.
Okay, I did not realize.
Beat the
33-0 now.
yeah, so we don't always treat public education schools in other counties like we should. But at any rate, yeah, they won by, I believe it was 23, beat Science Hill, so.
Way cool. Mr. Holliday?
I don't want to sound too much like the county commission, but on Saturday morning, between 7:30 and 9:30 at David Urey Elementary, there is a pancake breakfast. And it's not very often that we get an opportunity like that, particularly not at the former stomping grounds of our director of schools. Not that any board member should think that special attention should be given to David Urey Elementary just because it's where Don Odom served as principal. But if you can make it to that, they'd love to see you, 7:30 to 9:30.
We don't need to mention my years as UPTO president either, do we?
If the board would not mind, Mr. Zago would like to do a thank you to some people tonight, if we could.
I would. As we have discussed for the past few weeks, our assistant department of education has put us kind of behind the eight ball in delivering our assessments and getting things to us in a timely fashion. But I did say this to Mr. Odom, and I want to publicly say this tonight and possibly again tomorrow night, if you would allow me, to compliment our teachers, our staffs, our educational assistants, and our administrators at our schools. Not a single complaint by any one teacher or administrator or EA has reached my desk about spending last weekend sorting assessments, receiving the last 60 assessments yesterday. And we started testing today. A couple of our elementary schools started yesterday, but I'd want to compliment the entire Rutherford County staff at all levels of banding together and really accomplishing what I thought would be an impossible feat, getting assessments, 70,000 plus assessments sorted, booklets sorted, and in our students' hands to be assessed without causing any undue stress on those students as well. They should be commended for that effort.
Ms. Michaels, it might be appropriate for the board to send out a thank you to all of our employees. I know you'll probably do one, Mr. Odom, and maybe the board, or in conjunction with Mr. Odom, could send out something to all of our employees. So.
I know that would mean a lot to everyone because they've worked tirelessly to get these things.
Board members, is that okay with you?
I was thinking we probably ought to give them a free lunch, but.
Mr. Estes.
Mr. Sago, thank you for that, because we don't expect any less out of our teachers and staff, and
Sometimes we take their dedication for granted, and we shouldn't always do that.
that's right. And I did have a complaint today from my granddaughter about the test. I won't go into that. It was long enough just for me to hear it, so I will let that ride.
Fortunately, she doesn't teach, or she's not a principal for us yet, right?
Not yet.
Well, you know, a 12-year-old has a lot of weight with their complaints. I understand.
All of our grandchildren and children do, yes, sir.
And thank you, Mr. Zago, and we'll send out our thanks and appreciation also.
That would mean a lot.
Anything else, Mr. Odom? Anybody else?
Just, I want to thank, I assume it's Ms. McLeod, but for the request form that shows the fee schedule that I requested last time, that it be attached to this other material, and the AAU is on here exactly where it's supposed to be, and I appreciate that. I don't know how many of you have gotten any calls or emails or whatever on this. I have gotten a few, and I don't know, maybe 10 in the last 5-6 weeks. And when I tell them, what the rates are, I think they're kind of surprised that it's so low. And I think we kind of thought about that in the committee, didn't we, Mr. Young, that these were very, very fair, and so far at least, that's been the feedback that I've gotten. Also, a lot of principals, a number of principals, have told me personally that they appreciate this being taken off of them, which is good.
Again, thank you to Mr. Young for chairing the committee, and you, Mr. Jordan, for serving, and of course, Ms. McLeod was involved, and Mr. Reed, so it was Mr. Sandvik. So, a good group, met quite often, but there was a lot to cover, and I feel like you did your due diligence to get a workable situation. So, anybody else? We'll be back together tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock for our regular board meeting. We'll see a lot of talented students and their handiwork scattered throughout the building. So, I will see you this evening. See you tomorrow evening, and we stand adjourned.